This is Lou Dobbs Tonight. News, debate, and opinion for Tuesday, March 3rd. Live from New York, Lou Dobbs.
Good evening, everybody. President Obama and British Prime Minister Gordon today calling for a new world order to tackle our global economic crisis. President Obama said globalization can be an enormous force for good. Prime Minister Brown again pushing for what he calls a global New Deal, paid for by the United States, of course. And Budget Director Peter Orszag saying budget deficits could amount to $2 trillion more if Congress doesn't pass the president's budget. Ed Henry reports now from the White House on the summit meeting between President Obama and Prime Minister Brown.
A meeting of the U.S. President and British Prime Minister used to mean talk of war and peace. But it's all about the global economic meltdown now.
My main message to the American people is to just recognize that we dug a very deep hole for ourselves. There were a lot of bad decisions that were made. We are cleaning up that mess. It's going to be sort of full of fits and starts in terms of getting the mess cleaned up, but it's going to get cleaned up.
Prime Minister Gordon Brown is wounded at home and wanted a full-fledged news conference to stand beside a popular new leader. Instead, Brown got a more low-key meeting in the Oval Office. And yet, unlike Tony Blair, he didn't seem to mind being considered the American president's poodle.
And I think the history books will record that what he has done in his first, nearly 50 days of office has been momentous in setting the means by which we can see the economic recovery happening.
Brown desperately needs President Obama to help Great Britain deal with the financial crisis.
As far as the common interests that we're pursuing, look, there is the possibility in the next few months of a global New Deal that will involve all the countries of the world in sorting out and cleaning up the banking system.
The president pointedly did not make any promises about a global New Deal, focusing instead on trying to reassure Americans about 12-year lows on Wall Street.
What I'm looking at is not the day-to-day gyrations of the stock market, but the long-term ability for the United States and the entire world economy to regain its footing. And, you know, the stock market is sort of like a tracking pole in politics. You know, it bobs up and down day to day. And if you spend all your time worrying about that, then you're probably going to get the long-term strategy wrong.
Now, even as the president insisted he's not following the markets on a day-to-day basis, he did say that prices are so low right now on Wall Street that it might be a good idea for Americans to go out and buy stocks if they're in it for the long term. White House spokesman Robert Gibbs was quick to stress the president was not issuing any kind of official buy signal. Perhaps, though, he's trying to put a little confidence in those sagging markets, Lou.
I'm not sure what you would call that with the President of the United States, who has pretty much demonstrated he doesn't know much about economics, suggesting people go out and buy stocks. The last person who does know something about stocks to make such a suggestion was Warren Buffett in October, and since then the Dow Jones Industrials have lost more than 2,000 points. Surely the president will refrain from doing that sort of thing again, one hopes. But I don't quite understand the president's comment about a tracking pole, a political tracking pole, when talking about the markets. Housing values have just collapsed in this country. The credit markets are absolutely resistant to flowing and to opening up. It is not simply a tracking pole called the stock market that we're looking at here, is it?
Lou, there's no doubt that there are many different barometers, and many of them, if not all of them, are pretty bad right now. The president himself has said that many times. He's hoping that he can convince the American people that if he puts his policies in place, it's going to start turning around. Exhibit A would be the stimulus bill, the $787 billion. He went to the Transportation Department today to tout the fact that the first shovel is essentially going in the ground in Maryland near D.C. here today to start work on a road project. But obviously, obviously, the proof will be in the pudding. We still have to see whether or not all of that money that's being spent is going to turn it around. And there's been heavy criticism the last couple of days of this president, mostly by Republicans, but by some conservative Democrats as well, raising concerns, as you mentioned on the Hill today, with some of those Obama officials about the budget, about the fact that there are some taxes being raised and there's some spending going up as well.
Some taxes? Did you say some taxes?
I did say some taxes.
I mean, my God, that budget is filled with new, higher taxes. It's off-putting the degree to which Peter Orszag, the president's budget director, is saying that the world will collapse if that isn't immediately passed. The rhetoric of fear has apparently seized this administration, its imagination, as well as its public statements, to the point that only a rush, unthinking approach is acceptable. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, they would insist that it is only a few taxes. For example, capital gains tax rates going up from 15% to 20%. As you know, they're going to let the Bush tax cuts, at least they're proposing, to let the Bush tax cuts expire at the end of 2010.
But I mean, if I may, this is the same nonsense we've seen with administration after administration, only this one dealing with a real economic crisis, making these absurd projections on economic growth in the midst of what this president is saying is approaching a catastrophe economically. It makes no sense at all what we witnessed today, at least to my view. Thanks very much, Ed Henry at the White House.